us about two other roles that are not of minor importance at all. This is secretary and treasurer. We'll start with secretary, and I'd like to introduce here Dmitry Trapeznikov, the former president and VP, and a secretary and a treasurer, so orchestra man.
Okay, thank you very much, Valeria. Dear fellows, dear friends, dear officers, it's great to say officers. I feel myself like a general on the stage. So, okay, a few words about me. As Leo already said, I was the secretary, I was vice president membership, / treasurer, I was the president, and I was vice president education. So a lot of roles, almost anyone, which we have, and I think I have some experience to share with you. And I know that probably you all are hungry, pizza is coming, so please wait a little bit. And I'm very hungry to tell you about two roles which we have. This is the role of secretary and the role of treasurer. So the first one is secretary, and here is secretary, the objective of session about secretary. So my role is to help secretaries to identify their role within the club, also to find resources that will help them fulfill their responsibilities in the club and fulfill their responsibilities with the club and club executive committee. So quite simple, but there are a lot of things to mention. The first thing is the identification of the role and how a person who starts being a secretary see it and how other people see it. So let's start with agenda, because first time when I came to the club and I looked at the agenda, I saw president, vice president education, vice president membership, vice president public relations, secretary, no vice president. So I thought that probably it's not very prestige or respectable role to perform, and actually I saw it kind of this. So it takes a lot of routine to do your job, and as I said, people don't really respect you for it. But when I was fulfilling the role, I understood that I personally can get a lot from it, and on my own experience, I can say that fulfilling these responsibilities, secretary responsibilities, helped me in the nearest future to become a president, because I knew how it gave me understanding of how a Toastmaster club works. Because secretary involves in almost every process of the club. Secretary should be present at every meeting, and he actually knows what's going on. And as Lera said, that the first important roles are president and vice president education. I think that secretary is probably the second role after the president in the club in terms of importance. And in terms of the loads of work to do, probably the role of secretary and the role of vice president public relations are quite equal, and even the president could do less if he can delegate his work or her work properly. So understanding of how a club works gives you vital experience which can help you in other positions, and like I said, you can easily be transferred from the secretary position to the presidential position. Next thing, as I can say, the image is different from the beginning and from through the process when you are being a secretary. So for me now, secretary is kind of the secretary of United Nations or the secretary of the state in the United States. Is a very important role. And I see it as a person with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. So let's talk about, about the secretary role. This is the description of the role from this very manual, which were mentioned today a few times, and you really need to read it. And fortunately, I found a package with a lot of manuals, so hopefully you will take them and read the description of the role. So I will start. The club secretary is responsible for club records and correspondence, blah blah blah. So a lot of things. And to tell the truth, the tips which are mentioned in the manuals are a little bit different from the reality. And, once again, too much. I don't know, it's okay. So, yeah, and I can say that these resources and other resources, they give you the materials and probably the main points on which you can structure the description of responsibilities for the secretary or for any other role in your club. And these resources are very important because, especially when it is a new club, you don't know what's going on. Hopefully there are other people who are willing to help, but if you don't know anything, these resources can help. And I would like to say that, as I mentioned already, there is a theory, which are in the manuals. There is reality, because we have different locations, different venues, we have different people in our to whom we can delegate some work, and there is reality. So you should customize what you have in theory, the reality, and have the list of responsibilities. For this particular session, it's the list of secretary's responsibilities. So after doing it, you have the secretary responsibilities, and which is in the manual. There are 3 groups of secretary's responsibilities. The first one is the club meeting. This is things which a person does at the club meeting, I mean the secretary. Then it is some activities which secretary should do outside the club meeting, and also some tasks which should be done at the executive committee procedures. So let's start with the club meeting. Before club meeting, there are a lot of things to do for the secretary. Find all the participants for the meeting, email to TMNG, emails to speakers, emails to newcomers, mailing information, filling documents, and making printouts. And this is just the beginning. Next thing is upon the arrival and during club meetings, documents distribution, also checking and gathering information about table topics winner, then collecting voting ballots and collecting all the documents after the meeting. A lot of things to do, and these responsibilities are based on the list which we formed for Toastbusters. So it was after a few discussions. So I think it is more or less is the finished version, but you can customize, as I said, it for your own purposes. Then outside the club meeting, statistics count, update sites, adding numbers to the Google's documents which we have for statistics. Then executive committee. Your responsibilities in executive committee is take notes at executive committee, executive meetings, committee meetings, and also note amendments and email these notes, these minutes afterwards to people who were at the meeting or who weren't at the meeting. Whew, a lot. And I can say that there is literally a lot of things to do. And sometimes it can be very difficult to manage everything by your own. And we can create an image of a bad secretary. A bad secretary who will be the shame for anyone who comes to the club, because if a person comes to the club and there is a bad secretary, there won't be any agendas on the tables. Probably this secretary will be late for the meeting. Then he will start distributing the agendas just on the spot. Then there will be understanding that there is no confirmation of the people who should perform roles. Then some people will be asked to perform these roles, so kind of a mess. And that is why the secretary is a very important person, and I think that if the president has a very strong secretary, it helps a lot, and president can really appreciate this person and delegate a lot to him or her. So there are a lot of loads and overloads for secretary, and to manage all these tasks, a secretary should have some qualities. Responsibility, good time management, multitasking, effectiveness in their fulfilling, and many others. So for me, secretary role was a challenge, and I think that each secretary should think about this role as a challenge and try to do more and try to be active about fulfilling his or her responsibilities and try to be mad about it. And as it was mentioned by Maxim Sedov, we had a mistake where leaders are mad, not made on the printout. So thanks, Maxim. I think that people are really mad when they're fulfilling their responsibilities. And it's a challenge. And by the way, how many secretaries do we have now? Maxime, Victoria, that's it probably. So as I said, this could be a challenge for you, it could be very helpful in your next development in the club. And also people who think about secretary role a bit different should consider taking it after like performing some other officer position, because it really helps to understand how everything works. Next thing is some tips from experience how to do it better, how to perform better as a secretary. Create checklists, simple thing, just have the list of things which you need to do and check them one by one. And sometimes, as I said, there are a lot of things to do, and we don't only have Toastmaster Live, we have other personal lives, we have our job, and you always need to remember that there are people around you who are willing to help. And take into account the loads of responsibilities, you can delegate them, you can ask for help or for advice how to fulfill them better. And don't hesitate to do it, because it really will help you and the club perform better. Basically that's it. And now it's time to summarize what I just said. Understand your role in your position, be proud of it, because secretary is the role which is worthwhile. Use TM resources, because they're very helpful to figure out what the responsibilities are and what you can add or just to eliminate from them. Then figure out your certain responsibilities which the secretary has in the club and which you need to fulfill. Just have this certain list and be aware of it. Then remember that you have the team which can always be helpful and give you advice or just literally help to fulfill some of your duties. And face the challenge and try to be the best secretary of Toastmaster history. Probably that's it, so any questions? Yes,
I have one question. There are situations in our club that people sign up for a role at the meeting, for the next one. Then I email to them, they do not reply. I mail to them again. I send them confirmation mailing that do not reply. They do not
Okay, I understand the question.
and they do not show up, and we have to find a person just before the meeting.
Okay,
What can we do with them?
So, as Lera said, one of the responsibilities of BPM member is to have the roster of people, the list of people with their contacts. So you should have the mobile phone of your members at least, and of active members as well. And if a person doesn't reply to an email, you should text him. If he doesn't reply to your SMS, you should call him. And it's better to do prior to the meeting. So like when all these options are eliminated, then find a substitute. That's it. Any other questions?
Please.
Victoria, do you have something to ask?
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Okay, it's not a problem.
Digest information.
Okay, so
Isn't you?
yeah,
We
yeah.
have a smell of pizza now. Yeah. That's probably
yeah.
the problem.
So yeah. No.
What's the secretary position, your first position in the
Yes, it was my first position.
And what do you think about your experience of becoming a president right after the secretary? Do you think that it is useful or not? Is it okay, or it is better to take some other role after the secretary before becoming a president?
Actually, there was a period when I was like a month and a half between being the secretary and the president when I was vice president membership. So I had, there was some mess with the president changing, leaving to other countries. And like I had this little experience, but I think it's okay to be the president just after the secretary, because we have cases when a person became the president not being any officer at all, like Dennis, probably like Sergei. So it just depends on the person, and as I said, when you're a secretary, you know how everything works out, so probably it will be enough. Yeah.
How do you think, is it more useful to change the officers every year, or just to leave them still their positions?
Okay, so it's not about the secretary responsibilities
Yes, in
maybe,
general.
but in general, I think that people gradually should change. Probably it could be risky to change like the whole team of executive committee. It's better to have one, maybe two person from the previous executive committee to be there and to help new executive committee to perform. And but for example, if there are some previous officers who are ready to help, it won't be a problem to have like the completely new executive committee, and they will be just the supervisors. So I think that it's better to change gradually, but it depends on the situation. And any other questions? No? Okay, probably that's it, Denise. Please switch on to the next presentation.